$3,847. That's not your savings. That's what you owe. You are 22 years old, sitting in a parking lot outside a Target you just walked out of with $340 worth of things you did not need and could not afford. The card went through. That's the part that gets you. It always goes through. There is no alarm, no hand on your shoulder, no moment where the universe intervenes and says, wait, think about this. It just goes through, and you go home, and the stuff sits there, and the number climbs, and life continues exactly as it was, except now there is a quiet thing running underneath all of it that you cannot turn off. You don't max it out in one moment. That's not how it happens. It happens in a Tuesday dinner you put on the card because you had a bad week, a flight home for a wedding, a laptop because yours was slow, and you told yourself it was an investment, a month where the rent and the card payment landed on the same day, and you had to choose, and you chose rent, and you told yourself you'd catch up next month. You never catch up next month. That's the architecture of it. It's not a disaster. It's a default setting. The minimum payment is $94. You pay it. Every month, $94 disappears, and the balance barely moves. You don't do the math on this for a long time because some part of you already knows what the math says and you're not ready to hear it. When you finally do the math, you are 23. You're sitting at a kitchen table and you type the numbers into a calculator and you find out that if you pay only the minimum on a $4,200 balance at 24% APR, you will be paying it off for 11 years. You will pay $2,800 in interest alone. You will pay for that Target run, that flight, that dinner, for the rest of your mid-20s and into your 30s. The stuff is already gone. The debt stays. This is the first rule. The credit card does not care about your intentions. It charges you for every day you carry the balance, whether or not you remember what you spent it on. You don't tell anyone. This is the part nobody talks about. The shame that sits on top of the debt like a second layer. Your friends think you're fine. You look fine. You go to brunch. You split checks evenly even when you ordered less. You laugh at the right moments. And then you go home and open the app and the number is still there, slightly larger than last week, because interest does not pause while you are at brunch performing wellness. You get a second card. Not to spend more, you tell yourself to do a balance transfer. 0% for 15 months. You move the balance. You feel, briefly, like you've solved something. What you've actually done is start a clock. The 15 months will end. The rate will reset to 26%. You do not put a reminder in your phone. You do not make a plan for the 15 months. You spend 3 of them thinking you're fine. You spend 4 of them thinking you'll figure it out. You spend the last 8 of them not thinking about it at all. This is what debt does to your cognition. It doesn't make you stupid. It makes you avoidant. And avoidance is just expensive procrastination. At 24, your total credit card balance is $9,100 spread across 2 cards. You make $41,000 a year. You have $600 in savings. On paper, you are employed and functional. Underneath the paper, you are running a deficit every single month and narrating it to yourself as temporary. The word temporary is doing enormous work in your life right now. Here is what nobody tells you about carrying debt in your 20s. It's not the interest that breaks you. It's the opportunity cost. Every dollar going to minimum payments is a dollar not going to a future version of you. While you are paying $9,100 in debt at 24%, someone the same age with the same income and no debt is investing $300 a month into an index fund. You don't think about that person. You can't afford to think about that person. But in 10 years, at 34, the difference between your financial position and theirs will not be $9,100. It will be the compounded absence of everything that money could have built. The second rule, debt doesn't just cost you interest. It costs you the version of yourself you don't become. Something shifts at 25, not dramatically, more like a smell in the room you can't ignore anymore. You do the actual accounting for the first time, not the vague sense of it, the actual numbers, every card, every balance, every rate, every minimum. You write it on a piece of paper. You look at it. You don't cry. You feel something colder than that. You feel the specific weight of a problem that has been growing in a room you locked and pretended wasn't there. You make a decision, not an inspired one, a tired one. You are tired of the arithmetic. You stop eating out entirely for 60 days, not as a lifestyle change, as a math correction. You sell 3 things you don't use. You put $430 directly onto the highest rate card. Nothing about this feels good. It doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like cleaning up a mess you made in a room you should never have made the mess in. but the number goes down. And when the number goes down because of a decision you made, something small and important shifts in your relationship with money. This is the moment most people skip over because it doesn't look like anything. There's no screenshot worth taking. There's no one to tell. But this is where the actual work begins, not the inspiration, the correction. By 26, you've paid off the smaller card, $3,100 gone. The other card sits at $5,400. You are not out of it. But you are moving in a direction for the first time since you were 22 swiping without thinking in a parking lot. You start reading, not about motivation, about mechanics, how interest accrues daily on most cards, not monthly, how your credit utilization is suppressing your score, and your score is the thing that determines what rate you'll pay on the next decade of your life, how the minimum payment is not a plan, it is the bank's plan for you. You find out your credit score is 644. This number will follow you. It followed you when you tried to rent an apartment and got approved only with a double deposit. It will follow you when you apply for a car loan and get offered 11% when the going rate is 5%. The credit card balance is a local problem. The credit score is the infrastructure damage underneath it. That's the part people don't explain at 22. The debt is the obvious cost. The score is the invisible tax you pay on everything else. At 27, the last card hits 0. You did it in 14 months. By cutting everything that was optional and adding $200 from a weekend thing you started doing that you didn't tell anyone about. The 0 balance sits there on a Thursday afternoon, and you feel something you were not expecting. Not relief exactly, more like silence. The hum that had been running underneath everything since you were 22 just stops. You hadn't realized how loud it was until it wasn't there. You are 27. You are starting from 0, not from a foundation, from 0. The people your age who didn't do this are not millionaires. Most of them aren't dramatically ahead, but the ones who stayed clean at 22 and 23 and 24, they have $18,000 in a retirement account compounding quietly. They have a credit score that gives them options. They never paid for things twice. And now you are at 27, doing what you could have done at 22 if the card had never gone through. This is the part of the story nobody films, because it's not cinematic. It's just arithmetic and patience, and a growing sense of what 5 years actually costs when you spend them paying for the past. The third rule, financial recovery, is real. It just isn't fast, and it isn't free, and it costs you years you don't get back. You hit $10,000 in savings at 29. You invest for the first time at 29. You open a Roth IRA at 29. Everything is delayed by 7 years. 7 years of compounding you do not have. You cannot get them back. You can only go forward from where you are, and stop looking at the gap with anything other than information. At 31, you have $34,000 in net worth. You're fine, genuinely fine. The anxiety is gone. The hum is gone. You understand money now in a way you didn't at 22, not theoretically, through damage. You know what a statement balance means versus a current balance. You know what utilization does to a score. You know that the card is a tool, and that a tool used without understanding is just a way to hurt yourself slowly. You think sometimes about the version of you that put the good coffee back at 22 and still swiped on things you didn't need. You don't have contempt for that person. You were doing what every 22-year-old without a financial education does when handed an instrument they don't understand and told it's normal. You were just normal. Normal was expensive. The fourth rule, the card was never the problem. The problem was using a financial product you didn't understand to manage emotions you hadn't named. There will be a 22-year-old tonight approving a cart they can't pay for. The card will go through. Nothing will feel wrong about it. Life will continue. The number will just sit there, small and manageable, growing by 24% per year, waiting patiently for them to notice it. The machine doesn't warn you. It just charges you. Every single day, it charges you. And when you finally understand what you've been paying for, the only thing left to do is stop, do the math, and begin. The balance is $3,847. It always starts around there, and how long it takes to get back to 0 is entirely up to when you decide to look directly at the number and stop calling it temporary.